Detective Frank sat at his desk, staring at the case file in front of him. It was just another day at the precinct, but this case was proving to be more difficult than most. The police had been called to a local jewelry store, where a brazen thief had made off with a large haul of diamonds and other precious gems. Despite their best efforts, the police had been unable to catch the perpetrator or recover the stolen goods. As a skilled detective with a reputation for solving even the most challenging cases, Frank was called in to lend a hand. He spent the next few days poring over the evidence and talking to witnesses, trying to piece together a clear picture of what had happened. Frank knew that the key to solving this case would be to find a strong lead, something that would point him in the direction of the thief and give him a starting point for his investigation. He examined surveillance footage, interviewed witnesses, and even talked to the store owner to see if they had any insights or information that might be useful. Despite his efforts, Frank was unable to find a concrete lead. Frustrated and determined, he decided to take a different approach. He began to dig deeper, looking into the backgrounds of the people who had been in the store at the time of the theft. It was a long and tedious process, but eventually Frank's hard work paid off. He discovered that one of the customers had a criminal record and a history of stealing from jewelry stores. Frank knew that he had found his lead. With this new information, Frank was able to track down the suspect and gather enough evidence to bring them in for questioning. It wasn't easy, but Frank's persistence and dedication to the case had finally paid off. However, Frank was disappointed to learn that his lead had turned out to be a dead end. He knew that he needed to go back to the drawing board and start his investigation from scratch. As he sat at his desk, trying to come up with a new plan of action, an idea suddenly occurred to him. He remembered seeing an old man who always seemed to be hanging around the jewelry store, even though he never went inside. Frank had assumed that the man was just a curious passerby, but now he began to wonder if there was more to the story. Frank decided to pay the old man a visit and see if he could get any information out of him. When he arrived at the man's small, run-down apartment, Frank was greeted with a gruff, uncooperative demeanor. Despite the old man's resistance, Frank was able to get him talking by using a combination of charm and persistence. Eventually, the old man revealed that he had indeed been involved in the theft. It turned out that he had been hired by the thief to act as a lookout while the robbery took place. Frank knew that he had finally found the break he needed to solve the case. With the old man's help, he was able to track down the thief and bring them to justice. It was a satisfying end to a long and difficult investigation, and Frank couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and accomplishment as he closed the case file.